I'm Stephen Henderson, and you're watching my week's coverage of the Mackinac Policy Conference. Earlier this month, the city of Detroit announced an expansion to the Strategic Neighborhood Fund in the amount of $130 million to 7 new neighborhoods. The Livernois-McNichols area is one success story from the original $42 million project, and the Kresge Foundation has made significant commitments to both funds. Joining me now to talk about this project are Rip Rapson, who's the president and CEO of the Kresge Foundation, and Antoine Garibaldi, who is the president of University of Detroit Mercy. Guys, welcome to my week.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So the success of that initial grant. Let's talk about what that looks like and why it argues to expand.
Well, you know, I'm always a little hesitant to declare
to
success.
declare victory, right?
Anywhere.
Mission accomplished. Don't say that.
Anywhere in Detroit, it's a complicated proposition. But one of the things that's so extraordinary about Northwest Detroit is that we're beginning to see the convergence of multiple investments in a geography in a way that I think actually is helping change the trajectory of the community. You've got housing dollars going into the Fitzgerald neighborhood. You've got commercial corridor dollars going into Livernois and the Avenue of Fashion. You have open space dollars going into the Fitzgerald Park. You have education stabilization dollars going into the Marygrove campus. And so I think in many ways what we're finding is that the way to try to get a handle on some of these really difficult, complicated issues in neighborhoods is to come at them comprehensively. Try to figure out how these different systems work together. And I think at some point you create a critical mass that actually does begin propelling of its own accord the kind of neighborhood livability issues that you want to see happen.
U of D Mercy sits right in the heart of that area and has led a lot of the discussion about what the future should look like over there. Talk about how things have changed.
Well, I would say, first of all, that a lot of it has to do with our first meeting on this island.
Is that right?
June of 2011, when I first met Rip, and we talked about our connections with Minneapolis, my University of Minnesota graduate school days. But my ideas back then were not as grand as really what has come to be. And the original impetus was we needed to improve the neighborhood, the surrounding neighborhood around the campus. There was already a lot of engagement, but not to the extent that we wanted to really be able to make some differences for the property owners, particularly to the back of us, the south of us, in Pilgrim Village, and also Martin Park. Some of that's beginning to happen. What's happening with Fitzgerald now is really, I wouldn't say the culmination of it, but it's really the beginning of seeing how the university can work with foundations, with government, and also with neighborhood residents in order to make some of those things happen. So Live 6 Alliance kicked off almost 3 years ago in 2015, but there was a lot of back work that was done during the bankruptcy with the support of the Kresge Foundation in our having conversations with residents in the neighborhood about what they would like to see improved. And so, you know, we've beginning on placemaking, neighborhood stabilization, business attraction and retention, and safety and security. So all of those things still have yet to be done, but I would say that there's been a really great start on those.
There's progress, but there's sort of added level of difficulty picking up something that works here and moving it there. And I'm always sort of apprehensive to say, well, this worked. Why want to work over here?
Neighborhoods are not cookie cutter molds. Each one has its own culture, its own history, its own demographic mix, its own physical attributes. But on the other hand, Stephen, one of the things that we've tried to do in Live 6 is to take some of the tools we've used along Woodward and downtown. Small business funds, residential stabilization incentives, a whole suite of things, and to try to figure out whether you can migrate them, not exactly, but in some form, into neighborhoods. And I think then that becomes sort of the launch point for the next stage. I mean, if you can do it in Live 6, maybe you can do it on the east side. Maybe you can do it in Brightmoor. And again, not exactly the same way, but most neighborhood residents, I think, will tell you that they want stable housing, they want places to shop and to eat, they want open space that they can enjoy, and they want opportunities for their families to work and thrive. So, you know, the playbook can change from one place to another, but the sort of the basic frame should be constant. I'm
struck by the institutional, or I guess the power of the institutional role of U of D Mercy in that neighborhood. Not every neighborhood has that kind of asset around the corner, but talk about the ways in which that has helped move the needle.
Well, I would say, that was one of the initial purposes of it. It wasn't all altruistic. I know that in order to recruit more students and to bring our alumni back, we needed to improve the campus, in that particular campus anyway, and also the neighborhood. But there's a lot to be said about anchoring institutions, and Rip and his team have been very strong on that, about the University of Detroit Mercy and then Marygrove just nearby, which also continues to make a great contribution to it. But it also harkens back to the old adage of town and gown relationships. I mean, in the Jesuits and the Sisters of Mercy, the neighborhoods were largely based upon social justice, service, a founding principle of many of those Catholic organizations and universities. And that's why many of the Jesuit institutions have the cities that they were started in their names. But we felt a very, very strong kinship there in terms of our students, our faculty, our staff. There's a strong economic impact, over $300 million that goes into the neighborhood and also to the city. But there is also a lot of other intangibles